So you're a blogger, an aspiring journalist, or maybe even an industry professional, and you've just started your very own podcast series. Whether that's talking about what's happening on Game of Thrones this week, what's going down inside the UFC octagon, or some other crazy and wonderful topic. You probably got yourself a budget microphone that's costing less than $100, less than £100, and you're using a budget editing service. But there are a few tips for people who are creating these budget podcasts that can help take their podcast from just being another budget show to something a little bit more special. A lot of people use Skype to record their podcasts, especially if there's more than one person. You can't all get around a table together. So the easiest way to connect is via the internet and via Skype. Now, Skype's recent update, they've made a very, very handy video capture for any group call, which of course after you've done that you can go and convert into an audio file and post that into your podcast feed. The problem with that is Skype has its limitations when it comes to audio, you know, whether it's latency, somebody could have Wi-Fi issues, you can get feedback if everybody's not got headphones plugged in. Although it's a great way of recording a master audio, a lot of the times if there's more than two people, you're really going to struggle and the quality is going to be massively reduced. And you'll notice when there's people talking over each other, the feedback on the call, if they're not wearing headphones or if there's any latency issues, really kind of jumbles up what everyone's trying to say. And it might not be the best for listener experience to have that style. A tip that I used to do when I was editing the Mind Diet podcast, which was the Vinny Shawman show. Vinny, of course, many people will know him as a 2 times guest on the Joe Rogan Experience, arguably the biggest podcast in the world. And what we used to do when it was me, Roberto and Vinny doing the show, I would use Skype or a Skype recording service to record the master audio. And then what I would do is I would get everybody to individually record their audio. So what I would then do is I would go into a program such as Audacity, I would lay the Skype master track there, then I would take everybody's raw audio. It could even be their iPhones. I think Vinny actually did record it on his iPhone. I'd then use obviously the track ID to place everybody's audio in the correct area. And you do not need to be a pro at all to do this. It's very, very simple. You've just got to look for the peaks and troughs. Once you've done that, once you've laid everybody's individual file in, you can delete the master file. And there you go. You've got some really clear audio without that latency or Wi-Fi issue that you may be having. So another question I've recently been asked is there a good way to get phone audio into a podcast? If you have a mixing board, now they cost roughly around £100, but what you can do is you can get a audio jack and you can run the phone feed directly into the mixing board. You can edit it there and there, you can change your audio levels, and then of course you run the mixing board into your computer, which you use a program like Adobe Audition or Audacity to record that live feed. Also have some segments in there, have some musical overlays, have an intro and an outro song. Try and break up the show as much as possible. It really gives it a professional feel as opposed to just a one long conversation. When you go and look at all the top podcasts that are on iTunes, it's the little things like a musical intro, maybe a bit of musical overlay at times when you're talking about certain things or even doing an advertisement. It's always good to have a little jingle in the background, but having those smaller elements in there can really take your podcast from just being a beginner show to something, you know, a lot more professional. And another thing, make sure to have a proper schedule for your podcast. There is nothing worse than just randomly releasing episodes as and when you feel like it. You need to have a proper schedule that can resonate with your audience, that they know every Monday or every 2 Mondays they're going to get some brand new audio content. If doing podcasts is something you only want to do casually, then you have to accept that there are going to be limitations on your success. So build that schedule and just smash it. Make sure you're always releasing brand new content as and when you promised to your listeners. And my final tip would really just be, make sure to put your character over, whether you're the host or a regular guest on the podcast. There is nothing worse than when the podcast hosts don't introduce themselves at the start of the show, or because they're talking in a very monotone, very boring kind of way, feeling like they're forced to do this. Everybody's voice blends into one and it feels like you're just listening to a random conversation. That is the absolute worst thing, so do not do that. Put your character over. If you're somebody that likes to crack jokes, crack jokes. Be yourself, and that will then resonate with your audience, and that is how you build the longevity. So that's it for this week's video. Some tips on how to take your podcast to the next level. Make sure to drop a like and a comment, and if you've really enjoyed what you've seen, you can also subscribe to the channel as well. My name's Andreas Georgiou. Thank you very much for taking your time out to watch, and I'll see you very soon.